Well, welcome to Leaders Live, everybody. We're hoping we are live this morning. Yes, we are. We're live. It's always a bit nerve-wracking whether we go live or not. So, welcome to Leaders Live, and I'm Andrew Jenkins. This is a short countdown timer to help the various feeds catch up and get our nerves back to normal again after going live and settle down. We can't wait for today's groovy show, folks. And in this week's Leaders Live, we'll be hanging out with fellow directors Anthony Jones and Mike Sweeting, brand and design experts, and Mike, not Ant and Dec, but Ant and Mike, from ghosts that shape brands to inspire businesses just like yours. And our theme is it time your business brand acts its age? Oh, let's get a ooh in there. Oh. So give us a quick wave, boys. A quick hello. Hello. Great. And joining us as a moderator today, we've got Sarah Jenkins, FD of PDX Consulting. Sarah, quick hello, Sarah.
Hi.
There we go. There's the team today. 80th Leaders Live, folks. 80th Leaders Live. And we've been so pleased that we've all been part of this growing community that feels really exciting. Wow. So please let me know if our audio's coming through okay as well. We haven't got any comments in the feed yet, so hopefully the feed's coming through. So I can't see anything coming through on the feed yet. So Sarah, we got anything on the feed yet? No? Oh, and here's our video. Well, we hope you enjoyed that little short video. Actually, Ghost helped me to prepare for that one and get all that sorted. So, oi people and hi gang, it's Leaders Live showtime, folks. And yeah, it's just after 8:45 here in the UK, and we are live with Leaders Live. At least we're hoping we're live with Leaders Live. Oh, and the comments are coming through. Brilliant. Thank you very much, David. Good morning to you. And we hope you enjoyed that short, brand new, groovy opener, gang. And yeah, brand new. And we're delighted that we are being powered by our sponsors, Your DMS, who are document management experts. So, quick change of scene here. So, yeah, if you're new to Leaders Live, a warm welcome to you, ladies and gentlemen. And Leaders Live is a dynamic weekly talk show that generates business through networking, through community, and through extraordinary conversations that inspire. Ooh, I think that deserves a ooh. And as I mentioned in the countdown, I'm Andrew Jenkins, and please don't be shy. We'd love you to introduce yourself to the show so we can all get to know you and please, we encourage you to actively network and build relationships with each other in the feed. And yeah, good morning to Ian Taylor. Good morning to Tilly Davis. Says hi, Andrew, and the team. Yeah, and Tilly will be moderating for us next week. So yeah, we're flip-flopping around a little bit. And yeah, great to have everybody on board. So please join in, please interact with the comments, chat and ask questions as we go along. And our motto here is I to the power of we. Ooh. So live streaming as usual out on all the major media channels, as well as your DMS company page, excuse me a minute, and Leaders Live website as well. So the website address will be in the feed very shortly. Good morning, Matthias, as well. Now, I've no idea how all this lot works, but don't you just love tech? And not only can you catch us live as well, folks, but you can also catch us on the replay. And there's podcasts as well. What's not to like about that? And folks, we've got a buymecoffee.com / Leaders Live. So if you love what you hear and see, and you'd love to support us in all the effort that goes into producing this free show, and boy, there's a heck of a lot of effort that goes into making this free show, you can buy me a coffee too, folks, and you get a shout out on the show too. And it might look a bit like this if I can find it. Let me just see if I can find the shout out. Here's a little tester for you. So it looks a bit like that, and you get your name up in lights. How good is that? So the link will be in the feed shortly if Sarah can find that. So that will be coming. So you can also use the QR code as well on the screen, and we've added that on every page, so it just makes it easy, no faffing. So please test it out, folks. It's an awesome little app, and it's just a bit of fun. And we love it when we get a free coffee from you guys, folks. So there we go. And yes, Smash those likes as well too, please, and those thumbs up. We'd really appreciate that. I love that little bell ding. It keeps us motivated too. So please follow us on YouTube as well, and hopefully the links will be in the feed shortly. So phew, put it all together. What have you got? Yep, you've got it. Bibbity, bibbity, bobbity, boo. So let's bring up our guests for today, Ant and Mike. Not Ant and Dec, but Ant and Mike. Both Anthony Jones and Mike Sweeting are highly skilled, part of a vibrant team that make up the team called Ghost, a brand and design agency that shapes brands to inspire business just like yours. And today's theme is it time your business brand acts its age? Oh, let's just get that. Oh. And they've been very involved in helping me evolve Leaders Live brand too. So how are you doing, both of you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you. Very well indeed. So, Ant, set the scene for us today. You give us some direction, some sort of forward motion of travel. What are you inspiring us with today, then, Ant?
Today, hopefully, will be inspiring you to look at your own brand because it's evolved over time. See if it's still relevant and basically acting its age.
Is your brand acting its age? Fantastic. Oh. I think that deserves a And to get the interaction going, folks. And just before I do that, good morning to Mateus and good morning. Actually, I think your coffee is the Krayak every morning, right? Okay, where are you calling from, Mateus? He's our local globetrotter, so he's our digital nomad. And good morning, Caroline Sayed as well. Fantastic to see you. Mike, you've got a question for us, I think, haven't you, for the audience to get going on?
Yeah, so we were just wondering, have you ever wondered if your brand is acting its age?
Okay. So have you ever wondered, is your brand acting its age, and how do you know if it isn't? So Sarah will pop that in the feed, hopefully. I can't see Sarah's feed at the moment, so she might be struggling with the feed. I don't know yet. Yeah, I'm getting a nod from Sarah, struggling with the feed. So the question is, have you ever wondered if your brand isn't acting its age, and how do you know if it isn't? Oh, interesting question. Right, so that gets you started, folks. Have you ever wondered if your brand is acting its age, and how do you know if it isn't? That's the question for this morning, folks. So there's a little bit of delay in the feed, so we'll come back to that in a moment. I'll come back to you two guys just in a tick as well. So let me just bring up the moderator scene. So during the countdown, I briefly introduced our Sarah, and Sarah's our moderator today, and this is Sarah's first time moderating, and Sarah is my FD at PDX Consulting. So that's great. And over to you, Sarah, to say a bit more to us.
Yeah, good morning. Needless to say, first time I'm doing this, and for some reason the feed from LinkedIn is not appearing at all. So it'd be really interesting to know people who are commenting, what platform they're commenting from, because as I say, I've put everything in the feed from LinkedIn and nothing is appearing, which I have to say is extremely disconcerting.
Isn't it? Yeah. If you go onto the notifications on LinkedIn, you should be able to see it there, and you'll see how many people are live. There's lots of people live. You should be able to comment from there. So just move screens onto the other one we set up for you, Sarah. So that's our challenge.
The event.
I'll just put you on mute for now. You need to, it'll be in there somewhere. Just look at the notifications feed. It'll be in there somewhere. I can see it. I've just hooked onto it. Right. Okay. So back to Ant and Mike. Let's just bring you both back up again. Okay. And just before you begin, let's just give you a round of applause. Feel the love, guys. Feel the love. I hope you like the groovy build-up. So let's bring you side by side again. So, Mike, you asked the audience a question. We're still waiting for the feed to catch up here. Good morning, Emma. Great to see you. That's brilliant to see you as well. And please, the rest of you who are on, just let us know who you are. That'll be great. So while we're waiting for that feed to catch up and Sarah to find out where that is at the moment, poor Sarah's struggling trying to find out how to pop it into the feed. Actually, Tilly, if you're around, you can probably try and pop it in as well from your end. I don't know, but we'll see what we're doing. Poor Sarah doesn't know what's going on. Okay, so first question then from me, Ant. That's a question to you, Ant. Look, most people in business think they know what a brand is, right? And so it sounds so obvious, doesn't it? Everybody knows what a brand is, but what is a brand really? Let's really get to the nuts and bolts of this, Ant.
I think that question's relatively basic, to be honest.
Yeah,
But
seems so, doesn't it?
it does seem so. Everyone kind of has an idea of what a brand is.
Yeah,
They always start with it's a logo, it's a website. So it's all the mechanics that sort of encompass the visualization, the expression of what your brand is.
yeah,
But we want to, and then once they go through that process, they think they've done their brand,
yeah.
which is a bit wrong. So it's a never-ending, evolving process. Once you've produced the assets, you've got to go further. You've got to keep it going, and it doesn't stop there.
So it's as well. It's a lot more than that, really. If you look at the idea that we'll often personify a brand, we'll say things like your brand has character or personality, motivations and purpose.
Okay, a character and motivations and purpose. Cool. So it's almost like a living thing, Mike.
Well, exactly. If you're simplifying it, it does suggest that it's a living thing. So if that's the case, if it's living, it must be born and it must die. So it must follow a life cycle. So that's what we're going to kind of talk to you today about, really.
So it has a life cycle, it has a life of its own, and it's all about perception too, I suppose. And it's very subtle, isn't it? And I guess a brand. You talked about a brand gets born and then it goes through various stages, right? Is this you're going to talk about that? Is this the bit that you're going to talk about here, the cycle here?
Yeah, that's it.
Talk us through that then, Mike.
Yeah, so like any kind of living system, really, it will follow a similar kind of life cycle, whether that's an ecosystem or a living animal, or like if you're to personify something like a person. We've sort of put this concept together where you've got this 6-stage life cycle.
Okay.
So, obviously, start with birth. That's the brand. Just like a baby, it needs to be loud, attention grabbing.
Yeah, bright colours, toys.
Form these relationships with it's from nothing. It's completely unknown. So yeah, it'll cry and be loud in order to get attention and try and get across its message.
It's what it needs to do at the start of something. So if your business is your brand, if you perceive it that way, you've got full enthusiasm to express multiple different things. You've got a lot of energy going off at that particular stage.
Yeah, lots of energy going off in its early stages. Yeah, and Tilly, just to let you know, the link is in WhatsApp if you wanted just to pop some stuff in the feed for us, the Ecamm link. So please join us. That's fine. Yeah, and I suppose the other thing is to say, well, if that's what a brand is, then what isn't a brand? I guess is another way of looking at this.
Oh, absolutely. So, as we said sort of earlier, a brand isn't just a logo and some colours. It is this the soul of your business, really. And as you build around that soul with the personalities and the reason that brand exists, its meaning for life, all those things add texture to the brand.
It starts to grow up.
Yeah,
texture to the brand. I love that expression. So it's more than just a logo, right, guys?
Absolutely. So once you've moved on from that launch, the birth of your brand, you're then into this high growth stage, really, where you're expanding into new markets and learning lots of things. Well, like a child, you're building new relationships. You're starting to have friends outside of just your parents, and it's growing in every aspect and learning all the time as a brand.
So the next stage is it sort of points there is teenagers. So you sort of, like any teenager, you're willing to try anything. You're willing to try things that you decide you may not like, so you drop them. Things you do like, you carry on. So it's a sort of an experimenting sort of era.
Yeah.
You know you're good at what you do. You know the brand is okay. It does what it does. but you want to express it in a different way. So you're sort of evolving it a bit, or you're trying to evolve it.
It's almost like your brand starts to know it needs to act more mature, to grow up. It's experimenting with different styles in order to still represent what that brand was when it was born, but to reframe that in a more, a mature way, like an adult would. So just like a teenager would, try different styles in order to like get a grip on what they think they should be as they grow up.
As they grow up, yeah. I'm just thinking about my own brand for a minute, but just before we go on to that, you guys listening, look, what are your thoughts about your brand? How much has your brand shifted and changed and adapted? And it'd be just really interesting to hear from you guys. And we've got a bit of a poll that we'll do in a moment. But so we've kind of said, look, a brand is more than just, it's not just a design or a logo, is it? It's not just a website thing. It's much more than that. This is about the culture of your business. It's about the way your business adapts and evolves and the clients that you're attracting. And, at some point you then revisit that branding of your company and it subtly starts to change, right? Is that what I'm hearing from you guys?
Absolutely, yeah. So that's as you move into those later stages, like teenager and then adult, that you need to really, your business has grown a lot, hasn't it? So you're now a mature, large business potentially. But yeah, your brand maybe isn't reflecting, and your brand expressions aren't reflecting what you stand for now, because as a mature adult, you've defined the way you see the world, the way your business acts in the world. So you just need to make sure that your brand expressions are kind of matching that. Because if you don't stay relevant, you will slip into that kind of what we're calling the elderly stage, where your brand might go into decline. You'll start to see lots of other competition popping up because you're not relevant anymore, and competition takes the place, and you're having to act by dropping your prices in order to stay relevant.
Or you might change name or be acquired or acquire something else. So
so that's
and say that it's not to do with the age of the business. It could be 20, 30 years old, but still be in the child stage.
Yeah, okay, I'm with you. So age isn't necessarily determined, although there's some stuff coming up here in the feed. Let me just give you a pause from it. Let's just bring up, where's the mod scene? Here we go. Sarah, what's going on the feed? There's some interesting stuff, I think, coming up. Oh, Sarah, you're on mute. Oh, hang on, there you go.
There we go. That's when you control it and I'm on mute.
It's always my fault. You can always blame me. Yeah, Tilly does the same when she's moderating.
Absolutely. Well, we seem to have a few technical issues today. The chat function is really not doing
redundant,
what it should be doing.
Yeah, I think Tilly's just posted some stuff for us.
Tilly's posted some stuff in. A lot of some of the guys, Mike Swan and Angus, are going. The chat's not working on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So we're struggling a bit with that and watching it. But so interesting. Joe Cooper says, it always intrigues me how a brand begins. Love the life cycle, especially the naughty teens. And Emma Deshoe says she thinks her brand's about to turn 18.
18.
So does that mean she's now? We're coming out of the teenage phase.
Yeah.
So, and thanks to Tilly for popping in the bits. I've no idea how you've managed to populate that on the chat, Tilly, but fantastic.
Fantastic that you've done it. Yeah.
It just makes me look totally inept. And honestly, it is the technology.
It is the technology today. Absolutely. Yeah. So this was Joe's comment here. Thanks for that. It's always intriguing me how brand begins and the life cycle. Absolutely. That's what we're talking about, the life cycle. And did you bring up Tilly's comment? I think this was Tilly's just, Brand
is a concept that publicly distinguished you from the other products, services or concepts so that can be easily communicated and marketed.
Brilliant. There we go. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it sounds, go on. Sorry, Sarah.
Laurie says, age doesn't equal maturity. Where have I heard that before?
I don't know, Laurie. Where does that come in?
I could not possibly comment.
Well, luckily the tech is working on Tilly's side, so Tilly's just said, "My pleasure. We've got this." So there you go.
Yeah.
So Tilly will do the comments.
A UK problem, not a South African problem. Then.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, well, they've usually got load shedding, so they've got loads of problems there, and so brilliant. Okay, so that's where we are so far. Let me just bring the ghost guys back in again. So, Mike, that's really interesting the way we're looking at the personification of a brand, and that it is more than just its image. There's a whole lot going on here, really subtle. And we've talked about life cycles here. That Joe's mentioned about life cycles. You've talked about life cycles, Mike. It's really interesting, isn't it? Interesting way of looking at it. We're talking about these life cycles. Fascinating stuff. Could we dig a bit deeper into that? Tell us a little bit more about the life cycle of brands, Mike.
Yeah, sure. A good way to explain it as well would be to use kind of an example. From one that stands out for me as a good example of this is in 2020 when Brewdog.
Brewdog, right.
It was kind of controversial at the time because any change is hard for people, but
this one here.
That's the slide. So I think at the time they'd been going for 13 years.
Yeah.
And they'd started off, as everyone knows, imagine as kind of a punk. Kind of it's the man. We're anti-establishment. But where they now had 4 breweries across the world, 100 bars.
Wow.
And so they were actually very much the man in themselves. So they had to reframe the way they were, expressing themselves.
Yeah.
Because they were, this teenager now, at that before, where they were, coming across that as that punk, we're just going to be controversial and stuff. So they transitioned into the maturity stage with their new brand and kind of grew up and presented themselves in this slightly more refined way, still keeping their core disruptiveness, because they're still a craft brewery, but they were now accepting that they were in all the supermarkets and globally available. So I think that's a great example that kind of highlights the life cycle really of a brand and how you can transition from one stage into another.
Interesting, isn't it? And that this is the mature end of it here. This photograph we've got here, this graphic.
Yeah. So on the left is their second iteration, and then on the right is their third mature stage.
Okay, that rings a bell actually. Looking at that, so the first one's quite busy, isn't it? There's lots going on, and then they've cleaned up the brand really significantly, haven't they?
Yeah.
Here, and I'm
hierarchy that just says the important bits instead of, and they've dropped that kind of punk paste effect and like printed kind of aesthetic really.
So it's fascinating, isn't it? Yeah, and just think about my own brand for PDX Consulting. It started off with a very different logo and image to where when I first started out, and I think it was Emma that said, "Well, my brand's 18." Well, I think my brand's about 19, similar age, Emma. And it started off as a square box with a round circle to represent structure and fun, and orange and blue where my colours are purple, and that metamorphosized over time. Then it became a surfboard, still the PDX Consulting thing, but they cleaned up the design, and now thanks to you guys, it's just called PDX, and we've to a dark purple background, still keeping its roots, but it's changed quite significantly, and we've dropped the name a little bit, like the long name, just got the short name now, Brewdog. That's all. The punk IPA piece, although it's still there, but it's less crowded, isn't it? They've smoothed out the brand, they've made it cleaner, I suppose. And
the trick as well, I think, especially with PDX, is making sure that the person that owns the brand feels they still own it as it evolves.
That's right.
You still feel, even though it's not got a surfboard on it, I know you're very much into your surfing, but it's still relevant to you.
Yeah.
Got to happen. It can't just mutate into something that ceases to be relevant to a core as to what it represents.
And if we continue that, the analogy we were using earlier, when the brand like Brewdog are, expressing themselves, that's the clothes that person is wearing. So, as they grow through the stages, they are changing the clothes and the perfume they wear, maybe the actual tangible expressions change.
Yeah, very subtle, isn't it? So, you go through that baby stage, as you said before. Where is it? This one here, where you go from child to teen, and we drop the toys, don't we? The bright, shiny things. And, when I first started Leaders Live, very much like that. And then you have to go through these growth pains. It's not that straightforward, is it? It all sounds quite okay, yeah, it's just an evolution, but it's not. I mean, the other day, talking to you guys and my whole team about Leaders Live, and there's some growth pains involved. It's quite painful, to kind of take that next step. It's and sometimes we have to ditch the shiny clothes, and they just don't suit us anymore as a as a teenager, right? We need to have more subtle clothing.
Those you say the growing pains. Recognise yourself. You've got to do them.
Yeah.
Like one of Paula said that she reckons her brand is an 18-year-old.
Yeah, Emma. Yeah.
No one's going to tell her that. It's the evolution. It's the person that owns it, that believes in it, already recognises they're not quite wearing the same clothes, and they're not quite acting the age they actually are.
Yeah, and that's time then to look at the branding, isn't it? And to revisit that. And so, the brand evolves. And so, we have to look at the whole thing, don't we? Well, how have we evolved as a business? What image represents that? What's the text we're using? What colors are we using? How do we represent our personality today? It's actually quite complex, isn't it? It's not straightforward, is it?
Okay. I mean, just sort of thinking that FIFA were
where is it? FIFA. Oop, not that one. This one. No, not that one. Where is it? I'm just trying to find it. There it is. FIFA. That one there. Is that the one?
They were a mature organisation. They got their act together. They were definitely an adult wearing a suit, and they knew what they were doing, top of their game, etc., etc. But because of the World Cup and various political and cultural issues that have affected it, it's looking a little elderly, let's say. So they need to go away and reevaluate what their brand is, and then start to express it so they've got the right clothing. And I wouldn't be surprised if when they start to re-express it, they don't quite look like a suit anymore. They've got to represent, in this particular case, are the fans. If they haven't got their fans on their side, as a brand, they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot.
So tell us what's going on with this graphic here then, because this is interesting. So you've got the colours of the rainbow here, and this is the latest World Cup stuff, yeah?
The England captain, One Love. The England team, all of them wanted to wear this armband. Captain is known for wearing it on other games.
Yeah.
It was banned in the World Cup, and particularly from UK press, and the reaction to that sort of snowballed.
Yeah, it did, didn't it?
After the World Cup. But thankfully, the sport itself has overtook it, and people have got into the game, as it were. There's a lot of politics around it that need to be solved before we do the next World Cup.
Yeah, interesting. So they're out of step with their public, right? So, and this is where the brand is then in question, right? Because it's not ecological with where people's thinking is. That's an interesting thought for us. So it's not just about what we think, it's about what other people think about us as well, right? That's interesting. Let's just give you a break for a minute, and let's just bring, there's a lot of comments going on, so I just want to pick these comments up. Sarah, what's going on in the chat?
Yeah, there's a lot of laugh about dodgy makeup and how we've matured. On a more serious note. Matthias said Matthias says, yes, I tempt my brand according to societal development, but still try to keep my brand identity. There's a really good comment from Mike Swan, who says, what importance do you give to brand straplines?
Oh, question.
E.g., just do it, Nike.
Yeah, what say you guys?
I think as a whole, it's the tone of voice that's the important bit, isn't it? It's like that, as the strapline is part of the way you express what you stand for. And strapline is a great way to summarize as much as you can about your brand in a sentence. Nike is a great one because they do get across their tone of voice and their brand attitude and stuff quite well. Yeah, it's it's everything you say. It's the way you speak is the way you express your brand. That's just as important as the clothes.
Absolutely.
Just think of it as part of your arsenal of brand assets. It's not something that stands alone. If you've got multiple layers of the way you want to communicate, the strapline can do one thing, the imagery can do another thing, and your messaging can do something else.
And they
all so that your brand covers all those things. If the image, the messaging, the strapline, and the logo are all saying exactly the same thing, it kind of looks a bit boring. But there's always layers and levels.
Okay. So the messaging and the logo and it all works together, right? I mean, I'm just thinking about your, Ghost is a brand and design agency, and I think your latest strapline is that shape brands to inspire people, right? That's your latest strapline. And my strapline for Leaders Live, which I think is absolutely perfect. Well, I would say that, wouldn't I? Is I to the power of we. But we use other phrases, the stock phrases like be there or be square that I use on the end of every one of my messages that go out, little things like that. And we use words like groovy and get the vibe, which are all part of the culture of Leaders Live, but they're also part of the brand. Is that right, guys?
Yeah, completely. It's the way that you express yourself, isn't it? It's just as important as the colours and everything.
Indeed.
It's part of your identity, part of your personality.
Yeah, and even to these bright purple colours here, and the colour on my microphone here. But anyway, Sarah, what else is going on? Let's just give the guys a break.
It's fascinating, isn't it? You think about the taglines that you remember, and how many of us, somebody will go like, "Every little helps," and
every little helps. Who was that? That was Asda, wasn't it? Every little.
It's
Tesco, is it?
No, is it Tesco or Asda? So it's very interesting, isn't it?
Which one was it, Ant?
My favourite strapline is "Chocolate Heaven" since 1911.
Now you see, I know the phrase, but I can't think who the brand is.
Yeah, well, we should know that, shouldn't we? Or even a jingle will take us to a brand name, won't it? Yeah,
absolutely. Emma Deshu says, part of my strategy for next year is refinement, tightening up and leveling up with the brand.
Oh, there it is there. Nice one, Emma. Yeah, leveling up and refinement, tightening up. Well, you've got the guys here for you. So if you need anyone to help you tighten that up, then these two guys can help you.
Joe Cooper says, love the Ghost branding and feel of the website. And she also says, it's because you're a bright and sparkle personality, Andrew Jenkins.
My mate Jo, she's lovely.
Making you feel good.
Bright and sparkly, that's me. Yeah, I love that.
Absolutely. Well, we won't go, that goes back into the makeup.
Lipstick and eyeshadow, that's what it is, Jo. Yeah.
Every time.
Always.
Just on a more serious note, Christina says about the logo, going back to the logo on the footballers, the logo of the heart, was a human rights protest message against oppression to LGBT people and migrant workers. Is this still a brand logo?
Is it? That's interesting. What say you guys?
It's not obviously the team's logo or the FIFA logo, but it is a brand in itself.
Exactly.
It's become known as, you see the logo and it's like, oh yes, people know what it is. So I guess, yes, it is a brand.
But I guess if you don't obey what that message says or you go against it, then that doesn't look ecological either, does it, guys? Is that? No.
Well, yeah, if somebody's wearing your brand and acting in a way that doesn't represent your brand, that's going to have a negative effect.
Yeah.
So that's why you should always be aware of who's representing you, because that's just that's part of the way your brand's expressed. So.
Yeah, the expression of your brand. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Anything else going on in the chat? Oh, there's loads coming up, right?
Laurie Hales saying, don't underestimate a good tagline when has some little at all the strap lines for all the major adverts memorized. And kids do, don't they? They just get it off pat. Jonas says he had some difficulties deciding on how to use his brand. My personal brand is overshadowing my company's brand. I'm looking for a way to use my personal brand to strengthen my business brand.
Perfect. That's a great example of a life cycle, right, guys?
Yeah. Here we go. Here's a good one from Mike as well. how would you, Mike Swan, how would you handle a brand transition from a design process?
Just trying to bring your feed up. There it is. There it is, right, from YouTube. How would you handle brand transition from a design process, folks? Right, Ant.
Huge question.
Nice one, Mike. Well done. Put the cat amongst the pigeons. I love it.
Well, the first thing that we do at Ghost is we want to understand who you are, what motivates you, what you like. Not literally, do you like the colour blue or anything like that, but sort of what you like, what you don't like, through usually sort of through a questions session that tend to be a little bit abstract, a little bit repetitive, but the questions slightly different with different words. To just try and dig detail out of what you'd like from your brand, how you'd like it to evolve. Sometimes it's revolutionary, it's a rebirth. Sometimes it's just an incremental nudge, if you like. But that once you've got that process, you've effectively got a brief for a designer to work from, and it's gold dust to work from, I think.
It's gold dust, yeah. And interesting, this is where it becomes really subtle. I remember when you guys, particularly, well, both of you actually, and the Ghost brand is very much around picking up language and values and cultural nuances, which was going to be a question of mine. So tell us a little bit more about that, because I think that's where Mike's heading, isn't it? That trying to transition, because there's a lot going on here, and it's not just imagery, is it? We're picking up language now as well. And values, and it's very nuanced, right?
That's the key. It is the questions and the strategy that we put into the brands before we do any design work. It's all about discovering and understanding what the people behind the brand and what that brand therefore represents.
Yeah.
And what its soul is, what its personality is. And again, it's all about building that texture, about
love that word.
Gives meaning to the design that's created. It's not just created because that's a nice color or you like blue or whatever. It all comes from the meaning why that brand exists, to be honest. So
I really like that.
So everything has come from a meaning.
Yeah, a meaning and then a purpose, right? So
purpose.
So some big words there, and that's all about the values you use, the language you use. And I'm just thinking about, the way you designed My Leaders Life website, to represent exactly how we look and feel. And, I think that the website reflects it really well. It's not just done in imagery. Yes, there's a logo, and that logo is genius, by the way, the Leaders Life logo, brilliant. But, it's not just that. It's the subtle language structures and the personality of the people. Just bringing Sarah back in, because there's a few more comments on this process that's going on now. Sarah, what else is going on? It sounds like there's
a good one from Tilly.
Yeah.
Do you approach a personal brand and a business brand differently?
Oh, brilliant question.
No. A brand.
No. No.
Well, we would again. It's about discovering what that brand, whether it's personal or business, stands for. It's what their meaning is, really. So a personal meaning, because as we've said at the beginning, a brand almost is a person, really. It's personified, so it's a character, just like a person's a character. So we generally approach them in a very similar way.
Yeah, and I guess, the different things for different times as well. Perhaps you might be starting a brand that then needs to build itself in a community and get itself known. And so, it has one expression of itself to begin with, like the life cycle you were talking about. And then later, once that's built, I'm just trying to think of say, Thornton's Chocolates, for example, who had shops all over the UK, didn't they, in every high street? And now they're online, right? So that brand is now so well known.
Well, it's massively important. So that's the other part of the session, is to understand not just what the brand stands for, but what the context is. Are we just, getting the brand launched, So we've got to that's the importance, get something out there that's relevant, or we want to refine something that's been around for 100 years.
Yeah.
There's nuances to what the context is.
Absolutely, and it's interesting, isn't it? Some people might not want to get their brand out there because they're worried that it's not going to look right, And how do we know it's going to look right? The point is, you start with something and you just change it, right? As you're going along, and that's where the life cycle thing is so important. It doesn't have to be spot on straight away, right? It just has to be spot on for where it is right now, and that's it, right?
It's a good stage where you're going to learn a lot about your brand. It will probably be very different in a few years to where you started, because you don't maybe understand completely what it can grow into, what the potential is.
Correct. You don't know what you don't know, right? Until you go through it, which is a little bit like growing up as well. You don't know you're going to turn into a teenager, or what teenager looks like when you're not a teenager, right? And likewise for an adult from a teenager. Yeah, it's all a discovery process, isn't it? Fascinating. Sarah, what else is going on?
Yeah, Joe Cooper, visual and tactile edge for branding is a great way to engage the audience. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And then Jonas has gone on to, Tilly mentioned about the difference between personal and business branding. And Jonas is trying to combine two very different things. On the one hand, he's a business developer and innovation consultant. But on the other hand, he's developing and influencing the wearable technology industry. And this is where he's struggling to combine the two.
And isn't that interesting, guys? Because that is right up your street as a mission, right? To kind of work out how do we combine those two bits and make it cohesive. That's what a brand's really all about for you guys, right?
There will be a way. You just sort of got to go on a bit of a conversation and a discovery and ask the right sort of questions.
Totally. Yeah, and that's the whole point, isn't it? That you've got that conundrum is really interesting because that's what creates the brand, right? That literally that conundrum.
Yeah, and often the most interesting brands come out of really difficult collaborations or conundrums, as you say. It's like just combining those two things that initially you think, I don't know how I'm going to do this.
Yeah,
it's going to mean that your brand's going to be very different to what's already out
there. And the more you look at it, the more you discover, Jonas, perhaps, and this is what these guys do really well, is they just keep looking until they find something and then tease it open. And, sometimes it's a little bit of we've got three options here. We're not quite sure which one works just yet, but, here's our thinking. So it's not all straightforward, is it? There's sometimes 3 or 4 ways of looking at something, but eventually it comes into one thing, right, guys?
Absolutely.
Yeah, interesting. Let's just bring Sarah in again. Okay, so what else is going on?
Yeah, Mike Swan's got a good point. Do you think that social media has helped develop brands differently?
Oh,
good question, isn't it?
That's a brilliant question. Love that.
Differently. I mean, to be honest, I've probably worked in branding for social media's always been a thing as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But,
it's been around a while.
it's a media, isn't it? So there's always been types of media, whether that was newspaper, but again, they all function differently. But essentially, you utilise the tools, aren't they? So they're the tools in order to get your brand out there. It's a very handy tool because you've got 24/7 kind of feedback and conversations, so it's very powerful. It's probably no different to developing a brand because it's just one of your tools to help express it, I would say.
And maybe that's where the subtlety to a brand and marketing comes in, isn't it? Because the brand is exploited on lots of different channels, and today we've got more channels than we had before. Once upon a time it was print and ads and television and radio. And the label that was on your product, right? Just thinking of Kit Kat, for example, or whatever, if I'm allowed to mention that.
Do need to express themselves in a more fluid way. And that, social media is probably a part of that because you do have to be producing a lot more content and you want to stay interesting and relevant and to be able to post something that isn't the same as what you've been posting every day for the last week, so brands it's putting more emphasis on expressing that brand,
the expression of it,
but the brand itself will develop its own personality, which will be very similar to how it would have done before, but it's just the way it expresses itself has to be more dynamic, I would say.
Yeah, I like that. I'm just looking at this here. Lovely discussion. Just bringing this up here. Let's bring Sarah up just to read that. Let's just bring this one up. Sarah, I don't know who this is from, but it says
No,
a
it just
LinkedIn
says
user.
LinkedIn user. So I'm very impressed that a LinkedIn user has managed to get on the feed. So well done, whoever you are. Quick question. How often should a business remind the whole organization that the brand isn't just a logo or color, but their every interaction, message,
Perfect.
communication is annual often enough?
No, presumably. No, yeah.
It's a conversation.
All the time.
A conversation, yeah.
That's
Go on,
the
Mike.
important. It's a conversation. It's with all of your really, whether that's your employees, your customers, your stakeholders. It's just a constant conversation, expressing what you stand for, your values. It's not something you write a statement and then you put it on the wall.
Yeah, it's not something you preach. It's something it's involved.
I think it's a culture thing, isn't it? It's the culture of the organisation, and it works kind of all the way through. So if there's somebody who perhaps isn't enhancing the brand, we are who we work for, aren't we? And the better the brand is understood by its employees and its community, the better it's going to get out there.
Yeah, and I'm just picking up on Mike's previous question, about social media. Perhaps what social media has really done is express as an ability. You talked about content earlier, Mike, just picking up on what you said a few minutes ago. That whole thing about social selling and social media, because it's so quick and free, essentially, for a lot of people, social media is, you just use it, right? So it's an opportunity to really get that communication message going. So perhaps, social media has really enhanced branding and brought branding and marketing very close together with selling as well. So they're almost wafer thin between them, I'm guessing. What say you? Just a sudden thought of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, for you guys, it's obvious, isn't it? This is, and what we're trying to do is express this, aren't we? And trying to work out, well, what is the expression of branding?
You have access all the time to somebody's most, I guess, intimate life, haven't you? Someone's on the phone a lot of the time. You constantly have access to that person. So yes, it's like I said, it's very powerful.
Yeah, very powerful indeed. I'm just distracted slightly because there's some things going on in the feed here. Sarah, what's going on in the feed?
Kieran on the Isle of Wight is our very clever
Kieran.
LinkedIn user.
Yeah, very well done, Kieran.
It doesn't look like it's coming up on the normal feed. Matthias says, Tilly, in his entrepreneurship, he approaches both personal brand and business brands similarly, as they are quite similar. Finally,
I get that.
Something from Joe Cooper. Do you think that not enough employees embrace their company branding on sites such as LinkedIn, giving their own personalities to engage too?
Yeah, lovely question. Yeah, I know where Joe's going with that. What say you guys?
I think the brand can't, enforce its views on people. So personal views have to become part of it. But because it's almost like a collaboration, isn't it, between a brand and an employee. So they do have to kind of work together and share values. And you should be employing people who kind of share your values anyway. So I think that's by allowing them to be themselves, they should be hopefully reflecting similar views anyway. So it's
or actually, allowing the brand. I think this is where Joe's coming from. Is a brand can be very serious, perhaps, and maybe just slightly too serious, and then maybe some of the people that are involved in that brand, have different expressions. And maybe it's time for that brand to maybe change with the times a little bit and move with the groove, and maybe sometimes employees, might be thinking, well, look at the world around us, we're kind of stuck in a place and maybe we need to move it slightly forward. I don't know, I'm guessing, but, what say you to that?
Brand is a bit misaligned potentially with, like I say, because your employees are very much a key part of the brand.
Yeah.
And if you're not aligned to what they think the world is.
That's back to the England shirt again, right?
Yeah, absolutely. outline of society a bit potentially.
Yeah, so it's keeping in pace with what's going on around us as well. Like the agenda today is very different than it was 10 years ago. Sustainability and the energy crisis, and thinking about diversity and other elements that younger folk particularly are driving brand presence through their value systems. So actually, coming back to brand again, maybe some of the more traditional brands, then need to adapt as well to a new audience.
Yeah, definitely. They'll find they potentially start slipping into that decline
and become elderly.
Yeah, that's exactly. I was wondering where that comes in, that elderly piece. On the there it is, there down there. So when it becomes elderly, it's starting to become fuddy-duddy, isn't it? And maybe needs to do some change. Otherwise, it ain't going to survive. It's going to go to the next one inevitably, unless it makes a change. Interesting. Yeah.
But just say is never the end necessarily. No. Always rebirth.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. You rebirth the brand, right? I love that. That's a great way of looking at it. So it's not.
I think.
Yeah. Once something dies, it leaves space for something to come from its ashes.
Yeah, like the phoenix. Yeah, I love that. Brilliant. Just bring Sarah back in just to finish the comments, and then we'll move on. So, Sarah, what else is going on?
Yeah, Mike Swan, as designers, do you think you have more creative freedom with business to business branding rather than business to consumer?
Interesting. Right. Wow. There's a thought.
I don't think I've ever kind of viewed or considered that question. I think it's more down to the individual client and their approach.
Yeah.
Not necessarily whether they're B2B or B2C.
I think that whatever business comes to us and we start talking to them, we're very open as to what they're going to say, and we absorb what they're saying. So we're at sponge stage, if you like, just trying to figure out how to solve it, rather than whether they're B2B or B2C. I mean, when it comes to the execution of producing things for it, that becomes probably more of a factor. But in defining what it is, the brand itself, that's just a process to go through.
Yeah. Some clients will be less open or want to be more involved. We actually like our clients to be involved and to
very much
enable their kind of ideas of what the brand should be to influence as well. Because it is a conversation, it's a collaboration between two companies. But creative freedom just comes with trust, I guess.
Yeah, and maybe where Mike, just think about Mike's question a bit more. Sometimes, if it's a business to business thing, then they've got to think about where other businesses are, where it could be that consumers are a little bit more ahead of the curve. Just thinking about what we talked about beforehand with generational differences like Gen Z and stuff like that, which are changing massively quickly, and maybe business brands are taking a slower on the uptake for what's going on around them. So,
it's all about risk, isn't it? Whether is willing to kind of be disruptive in a way and challenge.
Totally, and how disruptive do you want to be as a business? I came across a business brand the other day, a business to business brand. It's incredibly disruptive, and fantastic what they're doing to change their perception in the marketplace, but also to encourage their business customers to make change. So it's fascinating what you can do purely with brand, right? Such a powerful thing. And coming to just to shout you out a little bit and what you do, guys, just talk us through your call to action here. So you've got 4 points here. Just talk to us about it, because we're coming to the end of the show shortly, so just wanted to get this in before we rush it. So talk us through what's going on here, Ant.
So they're just sort of as I say, that one of the things we know that people that have the brand are aware whether it's wearing, as we say, the wrong clothing.
The wrong clothes, yeah.
Its age. They already sort of suspect this, but this is just sort of like a few pointers to sort of give you evidence, if you like, because people like to get evidence as opposed to just have a thought and not be quite sure if they're right. So maybe ask some of your best customers if they understand what your business is about today. So if you say your business has been going for 10 years or so, you'll have an understanding of what you do, but you've gone through the teenage period where you've evolved it, you have services, you know much more than what they think you know. So it's always good to talk to your customer to see if they understand all the services or the products that you offer. So it's a good thing to just get a bit of feedback from a customer.
Yeah, I like that. Ask your best customers and ask yourself the same question, right? Once you've listened to your customers, that's number 2, right?
You already know the answer, but it just gives you some sort of confirmation that what you think might be an issue, or not, depends what sort of answers you get.
Yeah, if you listen to them and you don't recognise what you hear back, that's when you sort of have to ask, does something need to change?
Yeah, and that's the mismatch, isn't it? Which is number 3, isn't it? And so by matching those two up together, and if there isn't an alignment, the question then to ask yourself is, exactly as you just said, does something need to change? Because if you keep doing the same thing, then that's the first sign of madness, isn't it? Something needs to change sometimes to move with the times or to reflect in where the brand's heading or what's happening in the marketplace, right?
Yeah.
Fascinating. And then that goes on to what happens then. So once we find the mismatch, what do we do then?
So once you've done the mismatch, so if the answer, can I read it this one? The answer to the question is number 3 is yes.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
Go to the website and simply say hi to us.
Okay. Yeah. So and that's where you guys can enter in. Say that again, Ant. I missed that.
Sales thing from Ghost specifically.
Yeah. And your website is weareghost.com, correct? It's very small there. There it is there. I mean, hopefully we'll get that in the link in a minute. Maybe Tilly can pop that in the link for us. I've got those links as well. So because Sarah's link isn't working, so we'll pop those all in the link in a few minutes. Your all your contact details for you, Ant, for Mike, and for David as well, who's your CEO, David Agnew, and also the Ghost website details. We'll pop those in the feed in a few minutes for you.
Can I just say that one of the things that we love here, to start to get to know an organisation, sort of go into that trying to a Vulcan mind melt, if you like, what they are and what they're trying to understand about themselves. So we love a conversation. So more than happy to have conversation with anybody that wants to have them.
There you go, Jonas. There's an opportunity for you. Yeah, just have a conversation because these things are so important, great discussion, chaps. Thank you. So I think that's Kieran from the Isle of Wight. So that's brilliant. Yeah, no, thanks for that. And yeah, you're right. And brand is all about a conversation, as you just said. It's a communication that goes lots and lots of ways, very subtle stuff. And it's more than just imagery, as we've said. So Tilly's just popped the details in the feed. That's fantastic. Brilliant. And the telephone number as well. So there you go. So that's it there. We'd love to hear from you. Drop us an email, hi@weareghost.com, and we'll be back to you in a flash. There you go. How about that? Yeah. And Jonas says he'd love to have a conversation with you guys. So there you go. Useful. Yeah. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much. So yeah, look, we could go on forever. It sounds like we need another round. We always need a round 2 on these conversations. And I'll just finish up with Sarah as well. So Sarah, have you got anything that you want to add?
No, I think next time, hopefully the feed will be working and I won't look quite so inept, but there we go. I think it's a really interesting, thought-provoking conversation. One of the things that did go through my mind was when we talked about social media. So the TikTok generation that absolutely exploded during COVID. And
nice.
Dare I say, a lot of the younger demographics use it. And it's also very easy for a brand to become very well known very suddenly, but not always for the right reasons. So it's just quite thought-provoking with how social media has changed from basic Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, to be much more subtle, right?
It's the same thing, just the speed of it is incalculable almost.
Yeah.
And that's the thing
Yeah.
that social media has done, isn't it? So
Absolutely.
Joe,
Mike Swan says, well done, Ant and Mike. And
Yeah.
Joe Cooper, fantastic Leaders Live, great insight into branding and how it works, Ant and Mike. Thank you.
There
So
you go.
really, really good session today, guys.
Brilliant. Thank you. So that's thank you again, Ant and Mike, for just a brilliant enlightening us today with such an extraordinary conversation. We've loved having you on the Leaders Live show, my friend. And this show will be available on podcast too. So we're just closing out now to an end. So please join us, our LinkedIn Leaders Live group, and keep the conversation moving there. And follow us on our Leaders Live company page as well. And links will be in the feed too. And Tilly's just said, agreed, Joe, great insights. There we go. And before I get on to what's next week, the goose for next week, quick reminder, look, Leaders Live is a free show for all leaders, directors, managers, entrepreneurs, and CEOs who are interested in business growth or infotainment and enjoy taking part in these extraordinary conversations just like we've had today. And together in this community, we aim to make the world better, folks. That's part of our branding. We want a spirit of freedom, of fun, of joy, and that feel-good factor in all of our working lives. These are massively important parts of the Leaders Live brand. So there we go. And a quick shout out on my own CTA in terms of what I do. So if you're interested in what I do commercially, please contact me if you need any help with your business teams to develop effective leadership, effective sales leadership and operations teams, etc. So your people can operate their very best and run a successful and profitable business. And I do that through specialized development programs such as High Performing Teamwork, which is a specialist of mine. I do executive and team coaching and NLP Business for Diplomas and a whole lot more as well. And so very briefly, the goose for next week to finish off is next week on Tuesday. A normal slot at 8:45 a.m. by popular demand. Dun, 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 dun. We'll be hanging out again with Thushara Polpitaya, known as Tosh, and he's a straight-talking, dynamic speaker. We had him on the show a few weeks ago, and by popular demand, he's back again for a round 2 of his conversations on conversational control, part 2, folks, effective communication tips for success. Oh, I think that deserves it. Oh, and we know you're going to love it, folks. So that's a little bit about what we're doing next week. And we know you're going to love it. We can't wait. Be there or be square, folks. We're going to close out to this outro, this outro video now that Ashley Ghost helped me to produce. And here it goes. And it's a shout out to our sponsors as well. So thank you very much. Cheers. And we'll see you all again next week. Cheers for now, folks. Hope you have a great week ahead. We're just waving goodbye to you. Hope you enjoy this groovy outro. And there we go. Bye for now, folks. See you again next week. Cheers for now. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.